Having just worked my way through Starfield's DLC and a few other games in my backlog that I wanted to give a little bit more time to, Destiny will always be my number one favorite year round, but we do have the ever fast approaching release of Black Ops 6 on the 25th of October. And that'll be where I start my camo grind for the year, which is usually going to take me about the first month or so of release. But over the past week or so, I've been putting a lot of time into a game that released back in last December, and that game is The Finals. I was so incredibly hyped for this game when it stealth dropped after the Game Awards last year. Having played a couple of the betas and alphas, I had some pretty high hopes when the game was released, and sadly, at the time of the full release, I just wasn't playing it that much, either due to poor matchmaking or not having enough people to play with, and just getting steamrolled as a solo player. Here I am at the release of Season 4, playing and enjoying the game more now than I ever have before. If you do enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did like, what you don't like. Are you playing the finals? Are you not? Have you heard about this game before? I like to start all of my reviews with a technical section where I talk about my experience technically wise with the game and sort of my hardware so that you have an idea of what to expect going in with the game. So I went ahead and I played the finals on an RTX 4080 and an i7 13700K with all the settings at their max values and DLSS set to balanced, and the overall performance was pretty solid for me. Maintained a solid 144 FPS, which this game isn't doing anything necessarily on the crazily on the graphical front. Yes, it is being developed in Unreal Engine 5, so it does have a tendency to run poorly depending on whatever your hardware configuration is. So if you've had issues with past UE5 games, maybe that's something to take in consideration. But arguably one of the biggest technical feats that this game accomplishes is the full destructible environments. And when I say fully destructible environments, I mean you can literally reduce the entire map to a pile of rubble if you wanted to. A lot of the developers from Embark Studios, the developer of this game, are comprised of a lot of former Battlefield developers, and that shows pretty clearly in both the destruction, but also just the feel that this game has. A lot of the times it does feel like you are playing a Battlefield type game. The way the recoil is handled, even down to how your character moves around and mantles within the map, the sound design, it all feels so familiar, you can't help but actually feel like you're playing a Battlefield game itself. It's crazy when a game like this nails the feel of Battlefield more compared to their most recent entry. One of the less fond things I will mention on the technical side is the fact that all of the announcers in the game are actually AI generated voices, which some might not have an issue with. Me, I'm a little on the fence. While the announcers do sound fine, there are times where they do sound a little stilted and flat, and I would just think it was maybe bad voice acting, but since I know that they are AI generated voices, that's kind of the part where it irks me a little bit. So other people that don't really have any knowledge of it might not bother them, but just so you know, that is a thing. So you might ask, what is the finals? Well, the finals and the concept of the finals is actually pretty neat. It's something we've seen before many times over, but you play as a contestant in a murder game show basically, but not really. Teams basically compete for cash and prizes in the arena, and the modes that you can play are actually split into a few different sort of sections and modes within themselves. You have your basic quick cash mode where you see 3 teams of 3 fighting over a cash box that you have to deposit and then defend for a duration, and this is going to be your standard mode that a majority of people are going to play. There's also a rank mode attached that limits the amount of respawns that you have on your team, as well as a few other parameters. This isn't a mode that I've actually really spent any time with at all, but it's there if you want to grind out some rank rewards like charms and some pretty sick looking camos. The circuit is also something that I saw was added recently. I think it was recently. I didn't see it back when I was first playing the game, but it's sort of this rotating circuit that has a list of maps and modes and has its own sort of rank each split that you'll go ahead and you'll level up. There's different maps and different modes that are sort of changing with whatever particular circuit is also active at that given time as well. And then lastly, you have the larger team-based modes with personally my favorite platform defense, which resembles the payload mode from Overwatch. I found this mode to actually be pretty fun to play it because the larger team nature allows for a little bit more mixing and matching of the different sort of class combinations. It can get incredibly chaotic, but it's also pretty fun when you can get a good composition going and you can communicate effectively with your team for a push. Each of these modes offer up a good amount of variety, whether you want some tense ranked gameplay or you want to kick back with some friends and just play some 5v5 and shoot the shit. I like that they have all these different options so you aren't just stuck playing one game mode, which was my biggest issue playing the game when it first launched. On the actual gameplay side of things, I know I already touched on how the finals feels like it was ripped right from the DNA of Battlefield, from the way that you run, the way that you mantle, the gunplay, and most certainly the destruction. The way that this game is able to take all these different aspects and not be a total clusterfuck of a mess is a miracle to me. No single match is going to be the same in the finals simply due to the fact that every single building in the game is destructible. You can, in theory, reduce the entire map to nothing but the square foundation that is beneath your feet, which is something you can't really do in many video games today. Being able to adapt to these different level changes is also one of the favorite aspects of the gameplay itself, forcing you to take a look at whatever class you're running, whatever items you have in your kit. One instance that I had was a building was collapsing around me, but I tossed a goo grenade that expanded and sort of combined the pieces and stopped the collapse for a little bit. But the game requires a level of quick thinking simply due to the ever-changing nature of its gameplay and the way that the whole map can be altered at a moment's notice. For a majority of the time, the medium class was my favorite to play out of the 3 selectable classes. It's sort of that in-between class that offers up a decent amount of health, unlike the light class, which is very, very fragile. Then you have the heavy class, which is going to be very tanky, but you're not going to have as much movement abilities per se as you would as with the light. These different classes can be customized with different gear and items, sort of like a Battlefield class setup, with certain classes only being able to use certain weapons or gear, forcing you to look at whatever your team composition is and trying to plan accordingly based off them. I'll briefly explain each of the 3 classes that you can play as in the finals, starting off with the light class. This is going to be your lowest health pool character, like I mentioned a little bit before, but it's also going to be your most mobile character out of all of the 3. Their abilities and weapons are going to be centered around hit and run, fast attacks, and the dash ability and the grappling hook are going to play a key role within that. Then you have the medium class, which has been my favorite. This is going to be the one that allows you to place down a sentry turret, or you can use a healing beam to offer you up that little bit of class healing. You do also have a little bit of destruction, but a lot of the destruction is actually delegated to the heavy class. Heavy class can be a lot of fun, and I mean a lot of fun if you play and have the right setup going. Being able to just blow shit up like crazy in a match is so much easier to do if you're running this class, because nearly every ability or gear item that you have is based on or around destruction. You've got your run and slam ability, you've got your explosive charges, you got your RPG, whatever else you really want to run, you just want to take out as much of the building as possible. This is going to be the class to run. So take some time, play around with whatever you really want to play as, experiment. The game allows you to create up to 8 pre-made sort of classes with different characters and stuff. So you can swap them at a moment's notice, but give them a chance, try them out. I think that's the best way to find out which one's going to work the best for you.
Kingfish have gained the upper hand of that platform.
A contestant is on an elimination streak.
Leveling and progression in this game is something that I think is fine. It's nothing special. They don't really do anything different, I would say. But the chase is kind of fun just because you're figuring out, I guess, what works best for you and what works best for your character. So over time, as you play, you'll earn VRS, which is the free currency that you unlock as you play and do challenges. This allows you to unlock different items for your kit, like weapons, grenade, utility items, and more. As none of them are tied behind a particular level, but simply the amount of VRS that you have, but you do have a cap of 3,000, so it's in your best interest to spend them instead of hoarding them around, just so that you aren't losing out and potentially earning more of those credits as well. And fun fact, for the longest time, you weren't actually able to equip a sight on your weapon, and I mean, what the fuck? Yeah, a game in 2024 didn't let you have a sight on your weapon, so I don't know when they added that in, but they have it now. And that being in the game has attributed so much of my joy while playing this game when I came back, because I can finally see what I'm shooting at. Another aspect of the progression loop that you have in this season is that you'll be asked to pick one of 3 sponsors at the start of the season that you will then represent for the remainder of that season. As you rank up that sponsor, you'll unlock unique cosmetics like weapon skins, charms, banners, decorations, but nothing fancy. But I do appreciate how it feeds more into the setting of being in that game show, while also giving us the player some items and loot to chase for. You also find a long list of cosmetic items that you can unlock just by leveling up your overall account level. From different backpacks, different hats, different shirts, anything you can think of, that's where it'll be. While a lot of the good stuff is going to be relegated to the battle pass or shop items, you can still find a decent amount of cosmetic items in that free track, because customizing your character and your contestant is a big part of this game. It helps your character stand out unique from a couple of the other characters. Sure, there are some skins that you might buy that might be the same, but it helps ensure that a lot of the characters have more variety in them from match to match. The Battle Pass and the store are your standard in-game shop and Battle Passes for 2024. If you play a game, you know what it's going to look like: weapons, character skins, charms, all that shit. With Black Ops 6 rapidly approaching, I don't know how much more of the finals I'll be playing after this week, but I'm pretty happy with the time that I've spent with it since I came back to the game. Having played a couple of the betas and alphas since the release of the game, it's nice to actually see where the finals is at from a gameplay perspective. Not just the way it feels, but the way it plays. Everything is all vastly better than when the game first launched in December. I love coming back to a game after some time away and seeing what they've changed or what they've updated since that last time you've played, which thankfully seems to be leaning more towards the positive side instead of the negative. I don't think that the finals is going to be a game that is able to carve out a giant slice of the FPS genre simply due to it not having a big brand name. So far, I think it's actually done a really nice job at carving out a little audience in the arena shooter side of things, because what they're able to offer here with the full scale destruction is something we haven't seen since the days of Battlefield 3 and 4, along with the guerrilla faction games if anyone else has ever played those. It's a big bummer because this game has honestly been a ton of fun. Not something normally I would grind out and play and hop back into, but with the most recent season launching, I figured why not? There really wasn't much else that I wanted to play at the time, and considering it's free, I thought why not? Time will tell if the game has the ability to sustain itself for long term, as this was supposed to be Embark's second title, but pre-production reception to the game had the team move up its timetable, putting Arc Raiders on the back burner, which was a little bit more ahead of schedule than intended, so they swapped the release of those two. We'll be getting Arc Raiders sometime in 2025, I guess, but until that's released, the finals will continue to be that main game for the studio, and hopefully they can keep it going for a little bit longer because, like I said, the game is fun. I just don't know if it's got the legs to keep it going. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like, make sure to leave a comment as well. If you did, stay subscribed for more of my reviews. I should have one for Alan Wake 2, the Lake House DLC that should be coming up here within the next week. I'll also be having one for the entirety of Black Ops 6, multiplayer, campaign, zombies, that whole thing. And then I will have one for Stalker 2, hopefully, as well, coming up here in the next month as well. So stay tuned for that. If you did make it this far, I do also just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day. This has been my review for the finals. Thank you for watching.